Well, hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of the Go the Distance podcast, where we run our race. We go the distance. Whatever God has called you to do, whatever God has asked you to do, whatever race you're running, go the distance, finish it, and finish it well. We also have real, raw conversation about real, raw life issues in here. And guys, thanks for being patient with us last week, not having a podcast due to all the rolling blackouts and not being able to film during the snowmageddon apocalypse that happened here in Texas. I've got my friend JJ Alderman with me tonight, and he is the leader and director of the 6 Degree Initiative in Togo, Africa. And we're actually shooting this on February 16th. And so you've been here in the frozen tundra, the polar vortex of Texas.
Yes, I have.
And yeah.
Big difference from Africa.
Yeah. Well, at least it's beautiful. You've got to see
beautiful.
it. Yeah. And you've taken lots of photos, I'm sure, and videos for your family back in Togo.
I sure have.
And you're staying here at the missions apartment here at the house, and you've been right there with us, losing power about every 45 minutes. You've been a trooper. You've hung in there.
A few broken pipes.
Yes, we had a broken pipe. Yeah, that was fun. At least it wasn't in your room.
True.
Yet.
True.
Knock on wood. Out over the garage, but you helped me find it. So, and you helped me clean it up. Thank you.
We did.
We actually shoveled some snow today.
We did that too.
Yeah, it was great. So we're going to talk a little bit about what JJ does in Togo, a little bit about who he is, who his family is, and then also the fact that we, as a church, we want to be more involved. And when I say that as a church, I mean Rock Creek specifically, in helping with the 6 Degree Initiative and taking trips to Togo, Africa, and all of that that's involved with that, raising up leaders to be a part of what's going on over there. Let me just say this. We were planning to have JJ on our stage February 14th. Pastor Greg was going to interview him, hear a little bit about what's going on in Africa. Obviously, we weren't able to do in person because of the weather. And so the podcast today is probably a little bit of what would have been shared on Sunday. We're also going to shoot some videos through the remainder of this week that we'll use throughout, our Sundays and throughout missions emphasis time. We are in the middle of a series called The Kingdom. And we've been talking about the fact that, God's not just trying to get us to heaven. He's trying to get heaven into us. Mm-hmm. And that we are called as the church to be on the move, that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. When Jesus said that gates of hell do not advance, they're a defense mechanism. Yet so many times the church is in defense mode. And instead of advancing, we play defense. But we've been called to advance against those gates. And you're doing that. You're doing that every single day of your life. Tell me a little bit about you, your family, and why Togo?
Yeah, so I first moved to Togo when I was 6 years old. My dad's a bush pilot. My mom's a nurse. And so I moved there as a missionary kid. It wasn't really my choice early on. It was mom and dad's call and our family's call. And I was able to watch ministry up close and personal. Say we moved to this northern part of the country with unreached peoples, which means that fewer than 2 out of 100 people know Jesus. And most people there have never heard a clear presentation of what it means to have a relationship with Jesus. And so I grew up in a place where people were hungry to hear it. Many times we had people that would come and knock on our gate, and they would say, "Hey, is this the missionary's house?" "Yeah, it is." Can I talk to him?" "Sure. Why don't you sit out here in the gazebo?" And they'd sit down, and 45 minutes or an hour later, I'd watch my dad walk back in. I was a little guy at the time. And I'd say, "So, Dad, what happened?" They said, "Well, they just came, and they just wanted to know, is there really a God, and how can I have a relationship with him?" I said, "Dad, that's it." "Yep, that's it. That's the only reason they came to the house." And in time after time, I'd see people that would travel hours to come to our house to be able to see that. And then the next question was, who do I need to go tell? And they'd instantly say, "I have family, I have friends." And sometimes it was hours away, and they'd get that crumpled track, and they'd say, "I'm going to go 4 hours away on a bush taxi, and I'm going to go tell them this." And so when I was able to grow up in seeing the gospel advance and the church take ground in these people, in these unreached peoples, and see lives just radically transformed by the gospel, it made me excited to be a part of it as I was able to have my part as I grew up. Mm-hmm. And our family was able to do that. My parents are still there. They will have done 40 years in ministry by the time that they retire. And it was at 17 years old for me that I knew that it was really simple. There was one question that I knew that God was asking me. When it's all said and done, is it really going to count? See, because we have one shot. We have one life.
Yep.
And so for me in my life, the question was, is there anything more important than seeing the gospel advance among unreached peoples? and among people that haven't yet heard.
Yeah.
And so at 17, that was all right. And I loved Africa and I loved Togo. I spent most of my life there, even though my family's from Florida originally. And so to be able to look at that as an opportunity and a privilege to go back. So my wife and I have been back there since 2009 as missionaries, and we moved to this city called Aniho. And so it's in a 50-mile radius of where voodoo from the entire world started. It's a place that's been marked by sadness throughout history. Even 10% of the world's slave trade was sent out of that area of the world. And so you can just see the depravity of man, the fear and the power of what Satan wants people to believe and wants people to be controlled by. And then to see liberty and life in Jesus and see life transformation, it's unbelievable. And so we started there by planting our first church there in the city of Aniho in '09. And just to watch as people have shared the gospel with their friends and family and saying, I want to be responsible to take it to this village, to this family member, to this group up the road. And to see a church say, we want to be responsible to make sure that there's light shining in that dark community as well. And so it's been a privilege to have that as part of our life.
So you mentioned that you and your wife have been there since '09. You have children. Tell us about your children.
We do. We have 3 little girls. And so I tell people every other load of wash is a pink load of wash right now.
Yeah.
And so we have an 8, a 7, and a 5-year-old. And so time of our lives, we're loving it.
Hey, you live in the land of estrogen.
Yes, I do. Yes,
There's
I do.
nothing like little girls, though. There's
No,
nothing
there
like a
isn't.
daughter.
Oh, it's spectacular.
I happen to have one, and I know it's a special bond between a father and a daughter. So naturally, you're in this place in Africa where you hear these terms like it's the home of voodoo within this 50-mile radius that you shared, and you have these 3 little girls, and your wife is from the United States. Is there a fear? Is there anxiety of them living in that culture?
No, it's been clear for us that we're supposed to be there. And we know that God's led us there and he takes care of us and protects us there. We live in an area of the world where people are extremely friendly, gracious, and kind. And so people would love to have a conversation with you, but you can also see that people that don't know Jesus are living in fear themselves. And so the interesting conversations with my little ones is they'll say, Daddy, who do they worship? And they'll say, they worship idols. See, there's their idol. That's their God. That's who they worship. And then somebody else, Daddy, do they worship Jesus? No, they pray to Allah. They don't know Jesus. And so to see that and to learn and to understand what it means to worship the one true God, and to see as my kids pray for people and care for people and celebrate as they learn what it means to try to live that life on mission that we're all trying to learn how to do.
Sure. So when I hear the first time I actually got acquainted with your ministry, 6 Degree Initiative, it was through your sister Stephanie. But when I first met Stephanie and she said, I'm in Togo, Africa, I'm like, okay, I know Tanzania, I know Kenya, I know Egypt. Where's Togo?
Yeah,
where is it?
So we're right next door to Ghana and then 2 countries from Nigeria. So we're on the west coast of Africa.
Okay.
We're 400 miles from north to south and about 30 miles of coast.
Okay.
And with 8 million people. So it's a French-speaking country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me about the fact that there is a connection between Togo and Haiti. And what's the connection there?
Most would say that about 95% of those that were sent from Africa to Haiti came from our coast.
Okay, came from your country?
And then we're also both French colonies. So that'd be from the Togo Benin area.
Okay.
Back then it was called Togo land. It's since been divided.
Okay. So here's something I've got to ask you, because somebody's watching, they're hearing you communicate, they're seeing your passion, they already pick up on the fact this guy's a prolific leader. He's got something going on in Togo. You could my relationship with you, what I know about you, and the people that I know that know you in our converged world, you could go lead anywhere. You could pastor anywhere. You could plant churches anywhere. You could pastor Rock Creek tomorrow if God called you to do that. Why Togo?
Because it's an opportunity where there are people groups, not just a community, not just a city, but entire people groups and regions where there's not gospel witness.
Wow.
Where 9 out of 10 people that I talk to still have never heard a clear presentation of the gospel the first time. And so to be able to watch the ripple effect that happens, I think of, we count generations of believers, and to watch who just shared with that person that shared to that person and that person. And to think that we have a young guy who's 20 years old who's seen 200 people come to faith in Jesus, who's known as the pastor in his school, and he's in high school right now. And to be able to raise up and to empower and to release those leaders to go out farther. And so the simple answer is I'm there because there's an opportunity to have my part in what God's doing there. And so I felt as though God led us back there and allowed us to go back there, and we love what we're a part of.
It's so, like I said at the very beginning, it's the race that God has asked you to run.
Absolutely.
He's asked me to run the race here. You're running the race there. We're running the race together, and we're both going the distance. We're finishing our race, and we want to finish it well. We want to run all the way to that finish line tape until God says, I'm done. And then he says, well done.
Yep.
And so I'm going to make a statement here in regards to what you just said about the unreached people group. And you know the statement because we hear it a lot. You may have come up with it. I don't know. But those that watch tonight may not know this statement. And it's this. While we wait for the second coming of Christ, most of the world is waiting to hear about his first. And that's what I'm hearing Togo is. It's a place that's still waiting to hear about Christ's first arrival on earth. And you have the opportunity with your team there to have an impact on people who haven't seen a church on every street corner all their life or heard it, know the gospel. They become so familiar with it that we've become unfamiliar with it. They don't even know it.
Right.
So you have a team that took it, which we're all about team.
We do.
We are taught as Converge church planters and in the Converge world, it takes a team.
It does.
And I love that about our movement, that we're not lone rangers out there figuring it out on our own. Tell me about your team.
So we serve with Converge and International Ministries, and Converge is really focused on the unreached people groups of the world and focused on 20 different regions or people groups, and we call those initiatives. And so our initiative or our team is focusing on 10 unreached people groups in Togo and Benin. And so we're asking God for 190,000 disciples from 10 unreached people groups. And we know that's not something that happens overnight, and it's most definitely not something that happens from either one church or one leader. And so it takes a team, and it takes a skill set, and a diverse skill set. We also understand that living and working cross-culturally is something where we're better when we are together, and we're better when we can help each other. And so to be able to allow someone to bring in their skill set and focus in one given area. And so we see that in the way that we've set up our projects. So we have 2 of our projects that are directly connected to church planting. So you're going to have your pastors in there. You're going to have guys that are training up leaders in an institute setting that are working in that area. And then we also have another one called Togo Palms, where we're going to build a youth camp. We've done mobile camps, but we're building a youth camp and saying we can use sports and we can use music because that's the global language of the youth of today. And it also allows people to come over and use their gifts, their gift mix or their skill set. And then work with deaf ministry, because there are 85,000 non-hearing people in Togo and Benin.
Wow.
And we'd say, well, we'd learn a language because of people, right? I mean, ministry is ministry. It's the commonality of Texas and Togo in the fact that people are people. We all look a little different. We might sound a little different. We eat some different food. But at the end of the day, we have the same hopes and dreams. And that's what that comes down to. And then the 5th is vocational training. And that's empowering our disciples with tent-making skills so they can continue to advance the gospel there.
Yeah. I'm going to go 2 different directions. First one is this: when I hear you say 190,000, number one, that's overwhelming. That's a huge number. But at the same time, because my mind goes to weird places, I wonder why not 189,000 or why not 200,000? What's special about 190?
Well, when you start with unreached people groups that are under 2% believers, we're looking and saying, what does it take for that people group to reach the rest of their own people? And that's, we would say 10%, and we'd just call that tipping point. Others, missiologists, would even call it 7%, but we would say 10%. And so what that is 10% of those 10 unreached people groups.
So you're trying to reach 10% of the 10 unreached people groups because that 10% is going to go and reach the
Exactly.
So you're not saying, I personally am trying to reach 190,000 disciples. I'm doing that, but I'm doing that with nationals.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Because a national can reach a national so much easier.
Without a doubt. And even in a tribal setting, we have to understand it's almost like our subcultures. One tribe is going to reach their own tribe better than they are the other tribe. And so even to understand in the complexities of today's world, that's important as well.
Yeah, so in the United States, we wouldn't know it as tribes, but we would know it as communities. Some communities can reach other communities, ethnicities. We don't use the word tribe necessarily, but even though we have a Vision Texas church named Tribes Church, how about that? Because we really are. At the end of the day, we all connect with our tribe, our people, the people that we connect with, and it doesn't necessarily mean the way we look. It's the emotional and it's the connection relationally that there's just certain people that I connect with better than others, and that's so that would be what I would say my tribe. So I can reach my tribe contextually with the gospel where someone else may not be able to do that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and so it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing there. So here's the other thing I want to poke at just a little bit, because I was raised in an independent Baptist church that pumped missions heavily. We were all involved in global. We did local things, but global was a huge force in our giving and in our praying at our church growing up. Then after Bible college, I ended up working in 3 different independent Baptist churches before we start Rock Creek. All 3 of those churches had, at the very heartbeat of its church, was global international missions. So I was raised with missions on my heart. I was mentored with missions as a priority. And so the day we started Rock Creek, back when it was called Church of Celebration Metro, way back in 2008, I said, this is what I was taught. If you want God to bless your ministry, you have to be involved in international global missions from day one, because the Great Commission is not great if it doesn't include the nations. And so I've always had a heart for missions. From day one, Rock Creek has given to missions. We've prayed for missionaries. We took on our first missionary in our first year of existence. His name is Lance Gocher in Manila, and personal friend of mine, doing an amazing job at Sumalong Baptist Church in Manila. All that to say is, those were the 2 things that pray for missionaries and give so missionaries can go. I think where we have fallen short, though, where I have fallen short, is being willing to press into challenging people to do more than praying and giving. You've challenged me on that while you've been here this week. Unpack that for me.
I think it comes back to generosity. I think it comes back to being generous with the gospel. I think it comes back to us understanding that we live with open hands, and the entirety of who we are is not limited to just our financial resources and a few minutes that we spend praying or a few hours that we spend praying, but it's the entirety of our life, and understanding that we are going to give an account for what God's given us and in those talents, that time, talent, and treasure, and to be able to use the entirety of who we are to advance the gospel. And sometimes that means the knowledge that we have or the skill set. And sometimes that's the network that God's given us, and the resources and the people that we're able to pick up a phone and call and say, hey, join us and let's do this together. And so from the beginning, we've tried with our Togolese believers to say, hey guys, we either stay and send or we go and send. We all have our part in this Great Commission, and we all have to give everything of what we have to be able to do this. And we're sitting here and saying, God, what's our opportunity today? And stretch the way that I see the world. And stretch me in the way that I see the world, and so that I am looking farther at the things that you're looking at out front.
So how does that play out, though, with someone who's sitting in the crowd at Rock Creek? What's the next step beyond just praying and giving?
I would start by praying and saying, God, give me an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I would come and see you next week after church and say, hey, what opportunity do you know that we could have?
Yeah.
Or one of the leaders here at Rock Creek.
Yeah.
And to understand what the mission partners are saying, these are our opportunities out there. I was telling a few people earlier today, a few of the church staff, and talking about when a tractor breaks in Togo, there's a man in Palm Coast, Florida that I call, and he can walk me through what that looks like. And when someone's sick, there's a doctor who said, hey, call me anytime. Even if I can't pick up, I'll call you back. And people that are working in the computer world that say, hey, call me, I can help.
Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily have to get on the plane. Sometimes they have to be available and just say, I'm here to help in the busyness of my life. And sometimes they'll pick up the phone while their kid's on the football field during practice. And that's awesome, because that's where they are in their life. And at the same time, they're saying, I'm completely present with my family right here, right now. And on the other side of the world, I'm ready to jump in and help with the skill set that I have too.
Yeah, so this is why on Sunday and this coming Sunday, you received that missions card with that QR code on there, because that QR code led you to a survey. And those questions we're asking you, we're trying to find skill sets that are within our own congregation that can be used, not here just locally, but can be used globally.
Yes.
Can be a blessing. See, you think, well, I'm a dentist. But maybe you're not just a dentist. Maybe God's giving you the opportunity to go to Togo and do dental work. But we would never know that you could do that if we didn't know you were a dentist here. So that's why we did the survey. Maybe you're good with carpentry. You're good with your hands. You can build things. And we don't know that about you, but in the survey we find it out. And then we take a trip to Togo and we're going to build a church. We need you to go with us.
That's right.
And so I'm learning these things. I'm getting more schooled at the fact that it's got to go beyond just the treasures. It's got to get into that time and that talent piece. There will always be those who will give so others can go. I get that. And there will always be prayer warriors and prayer closets that none of us know about that are holding our arms up while we do ministry.
That's right.
But I think we've missed the mark so many times in tapping into the skill sets, the talents, and the giftedness of people here. How can that be used globally? And so you've challenged me on that. There's been some others that have challenged me on that, and that's why we've done the survey. And we'll do the survey every year in February just to find out who's new, who do we have, how can we utilize what God has gifted you in a gospel way.
Exactly.
Now, beyond that, you know this, I know this because, and others of you know this because of what we've seen happen in the Dominican Republic. Nothing will ever impact your heart to missions like going. Mm-hmm. And so seeing it. And so we've been talking and you're like, you got to come to Togo. You got to come to Togo. And I know I got to get on those 8-hour flights to Togo. And we've even talked about that. But I do believe that God is calling us to look at taking some folks to the west coast of Africa, to the 6 Degree Initiative, to see what's going on there. And I think if we see it with our own eyes, God will impress it on our heart. We can hear your stories all day, but they're your stories. We've got to have our own. And so while I've seen people do that in trips to the Dominican, and we're going to continue to do that, we're all in down there, there are other places and other things we need to be a part of. And so I'm super excited about what that looks like in the future. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're ready for us to come tomorrow.
Yes.
Even though you've got to head back here tomorrow or the next day, and you need to get home before we come over there. But I'm excited what God's doing, and I want to see it. And I've been excited about the 6 Degree Initiative from the time I met your sister and heard her heart for it. But I'm excited to see what God does and how we can partner with you and move forward with you in steps to reach these unreached people groups.
And this prayer and this dream of seeing 190,000 disciples, it's not something we can accomplish on our own. Mm-hmm. We need churches, we need partners, and we need to do this together because it's not something we can do by ourselves. Yeah. And so together we will see this, and we'll pray for it, we'll work towards it, we'll sacrifice, and even come over to Togo and come visit.
Yeah.
And see and meet people yourself.
Yeah.
That was a prayer I had when I was a teenager. I said, God, I've watched you be faithful to my dad for years. Looking back at those stories, I need you to be faithful to me in that same way too. And I need to take a step of faith. And I need to position myself in a place where you'll show up and you'll show how great you are. Mm-hmm. But I have to live that life of faith to be able to watch you do that. And I've seen the faithfulness of God. And I look forward to seeing the way he continues to work.
So if I'm watching tonight and I'm a leader, and God is, by the way, everybody's a leader that's an influencer. If you're influencing somebody, you're a leader. So Dad, you don't think you're a leader, you're a leader because you have children.
You're leading.
Yeah. Mom, you think, oh, I'm just a housewife. You're a leader. You're leading your children. If there's a leader watching tonight that God is stirring right now, I mean, that they're watching this and it's like they're watching us, but they're not hearing us. They're hearing something, that still small voice in their heart and their soul, and they want to talk to you about Togo. Mm-hmm. They want to find out more. Is there an email they can connect you with?
Absolutely.
So what is your email?
So it's jja@converge.org.
JJA
at converge.org.
And we'll have that on the screen there for you as well.
Yeah.
Send JJ an email.
I'd love to have a conversation.
But just start. That may be your next step. You're like, man, I'd really like to do something like that, but I don't even know where to start. Well, hello, we just gave you the place to start.
We don't have to have all the answers. In fact, we never will have all the answers.
You'll never take a step.
We have to take our first step.
If you have to have all the answers, you'll never go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that drives people nuts. A lot of people are like, I got to have all my questions answered before I'll take a leap of faith. Read your Bible. None of those heroes in the Bible had all their questions answered. They just followed. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to have you here with us this week. I know the week didn't turn out the way we wanted it.
That's all right.
I know we did a little Instagram live thing with the teenagers on Wednesday night, and we weren't able to have the table on Wednesday morning for you to speak to the leaders there. And obviously Sunday didn't happen the way we wanted it, but you'll be back. And we can't wait for that to happen. I'm glad you came this week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for shooting the podcast. But more than anything, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for leaving this country and all of its luxuries and all of its opportunities and going there and embracing the greatest opportunity that God has given you to reach the reach people groups that need to hear that Jesus loves them. Yeah.
It's been great. Thanks so much for our time together.
You bet. Appreciate you, JJ. Hey, guys, thank you again for being with us this week. Look forward to seeing you back next Wednesday night on the Go the Distance podcast. God bless.